this was Sesame Street, I would say tonight's program is brought to you by the phrase dummy spit. We've seen epic dummy spits today by the French ambassador, by Malcolm Turnbull, and I think we're going to see one soon from Joe Biden too when he gets home and they wake him up. Let's start with the French. I mean, let's call a spade here. The French were building dud subs. I heard they had 3 years, all in reverse. And we dumped the contract. Get over it. We know it's embarrassing. We know Emmanuel Macron faces a presidential election next year, and this is a humiliating setback. But that's his problem. We wanted better submarines. We have a nation to defend. And while that might be a concept that is hard for France to understand, we need to be deadly serious about it. We don't have a lot of friendly and powerful nations nearby. So we have to worry about our national security and our national interests. They come first, not French pride. But as if Macron's petulance and undiplomatic references to lying and his bending of the truth about how much he knew, as if that wasn't bad enough, France sent its Australian ambassador out to the National Press Club today in Canberra to give us a spray.
The deceit was intentional. And because there was far more at stake than providing submarines, because it was a common agreement on sovereignty, sealed with the transmission of highly classified data, the way it was handled was plainly a stab in the back.
Look, Ambassador, Your Excellency, or whatever highfalutin title you like others to use in deference to you, bagging Australia will always win over the ABC and most of the Canberra Press Gallery. It'll get the left cheering here in Australia. But across mainland Australia, mainstream Australia, it just makes your country look petty. It makes France look unreliable, unrealistic and untrustworthy. And back in France, dare I say, it'll just compound the political damage because voters don't want to see their country embarrass itself. Australian voters know you don't mean much to us and we don't mean much to you. I mean, the way you repaid us for our blood and toil defending your country twice in world wars was testing your nuclear bombs in the Pacific. I mean, we never saw a French president visit our country in all those decades after the war. Not even a single visit for Anzac Day or some such. Never once. The first French presidential visit to Australia came in 2014 when there was a sniff of a submarine deal in the air. Macron himself came 4 years later when the deal was done. So everyone understands the disappointment of France. But so too do we understand your arrogance and self-interest. Voters also comprehend how a highly secret strategic agreement between Australia, the US and the UK could not be revealed to the French until it was finalised. That's just the real world, mate. Get over it. But the ambassador, under instructions from Paris no doubt, was more interested in putting on a tantrum.
This is an unprecedented new law in terms of how to proceed and also in terms of truth and trust. You don't behave like this on personal exchanges of leaders who are allies. But maybe it's just a confirmation that we were never seen as an ally. But doing so also sends a very worrying signal for all heads of states. Beware. In Australia, there will be leaks. And what you say in confidence to your partners will be eventually used and weaponized against you one day.
No, Ambassador, this is a low point in French diplomacy. The French called our Prime Minister a liar and they cried foul when the information was leaked to correct the record. This is an insult to all Australians. Now, my advice to Scott Morrison, who's due back in the country from Glasgow soon enough, would be not to respond at all to this. But he happened to do a media conference on the way home, stopping off to visit our troops in the United Arab Emirates.
I said claims were made and claims were refuted. What is needed now is for us to all just get on with it. I mean, that's what is most important to the Australian people, that the United States, the United Kingdom and Australia get on with the historic agreement that we came to deliver an incredibly important capability for Australia to keep Australians safe and to defend and protect Australia.
Well, that's the right attitude now. Don't get into a tit-for-tat with the French. The ambassador's graceless dummy spit speaks for itself. And Morrison should also ignore his former colleague and Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, who seems determined to ingratiate himself to the Green Left, the Labor Party and the French.
Tell you what Scott Morrison has done. He has sacrificed Australian honour, Australian security and Australian sovereignty. Now, that is a shocking thing for an Australian Prime Minister to do.
Well, to use that word, what a shocking thing for a former Prime Minister to do, that's for sure. It wasn't good enough for Turnbull to do a dud sub deal, the dub deal with the French over the submarines when he was Prime Minister. Now, when Morrison takes the tough decision to fix that French mess, Turnbull wants to undercut Morrison and Australia's position.
It's such a shame. I mean, I had a really productive relationship with Malcolm as Prime Minister, but since all that has happened, he's just become a bit of a tosser, hasn't he? Like, he just constantly seems to gripe about these things. There's only one word for it, and it's a good Australian word. Mate, you're a bit of a tosser. Get over it.
Now, you don't have to be a Morrison fan to resent this pathetic attack from the French ambassador and from Turnbull. But Morrison will win over more people and show stronger leadership if he learns to leave this stuff alone. He needs to resist wasting his time on either of them.